Coming up on CHGO Cubs, presented by Toyota. Are the Cubs about to sign Lance Lynn with the team over in Japan? Did you see Seiya split a ball literally in half in batting practice? And is Shota Imanaga ready for the Cy Young race or regression in 2025? Brew. CHGO Cubs next. Podcast presented by Toyota. It is Thursday, March 13th, and we are 5 days away from the Cubs opening the regular season in Tokyo. The Cubs, of course, are already in Japan. They've been working out, hanging around the ball field. Lots of pictures showing up on Instagram and Twitter from players having a good time, eating great meals. We're going to talk baseball. We're going to talk about the possibility of adding a new starting pitcher while the team is over in Japan. And we'll talk about Shota's projections for this season, how he might fit in. And we'll talk about, wait for it, the Brewers as we start our division race look throughout this podcast. First, I want to tell you, though, it's still going on right now. If you haven't done it yet, this is the time to get to be a diehard, a CHGO diehard. Make sure you go out there. It's $36 right now. It's normally $79.99. Right now, $36 for the first year. It is our free agent frenzy deal that includes your access to the Discord, your newsletters, all the access to the written content, discounts on the merch, discounts on the events, cool things like the draft party, which was just announced, 115 Bourbon Street, coming up for both days, first 2 days of the NFL draft. All of those things, part of the Die Hard, along with the credibility of the Die Hard card, which is fairly unmatched.
The NFL draft party last year was awesome. It was probably our best event as an entire company.
Oh, yeah, no,
as a Cubs guy, I will admittedly say our NFL draft party last year was the best event we did or had, and it was the biggest turnout that we've had for any event that we've ever had. And everyone who came, they got a discount because they're diehards. So,
yeah, I mean,
most people did.
Obviously, they had the number one pick last year, and that was a big deal, but this year, they've made all these moves, and now you're like, they can take the best player. This is exciting. What are they going to do with number 10? So I imagine that's going to be sold out.
And, you know, you can come hang out with me and Luke. We'll probably be there. So
yeah. All right. So.
And we can talk Cubs and how they're probably blowing eighth inning leads.
Yeah, I mean, show up. Just because you're there to talk Bears doesn't mean you can't talk Cubs, too.
Yeah.
We're going to talk Lance Lynn in a second. Hi to everybody in the live YouTube chat. Becky's here. Mr. Mohawk Timmy's becoming a regular.
I keep seeing that face. Rogue Wave is here.
Creative, always around.
Yep.
I don't know who the CHGO sports guy is, but he's here. Joey's running the ones and twos for us.
Welcome, Joey.
Hello, gentlemen.
I didn't introduce us in case you're new to the podcast. I'm Luke Stuckmeyer. He's Cody Delmendo. He brings the vibes.
I bring something, people say.
I bring the cough drops.
Can I ask you one thing to avoid this show?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
You're asking Joey or me?
This is to Luke.
Uh-oh.
Can we start a
it's
kind of
swear jar?
Yeah, it's like a jar, a swear jar. Can we start a swear jar, but instead of swearing, it's Cam Smith. If you mention Cam Smith, you have to put something in the swear jar.
If I mention Cam Smith, I put $1 in the swear jar. If you swear, you put $1 in the swear jar, because we all both know that I have never, ever sworn in a podcast or television or radio.
Life. Yeah.
Well, I definitely have, but I haven't lately because we're not allowed to anymore.
But occasionally it slips out.
It does occasionally slip out, no doubt. But anyway, swear jar for if I actually swear, and if Luke mentions Cam Smith, we should actually get a jar, put it on the set. Yes.
I can't mention Cameron Indoor Stadium. I'll just refer to him as Cameron. Okay.
That guy for the Astros that we traded. Yeah.
I don't know how well this is going to play for the people that listen just on podcast form, which we appreciate all of you as well. But make sure you subscribe to the CHGO Sports YouTube page. It's the best way to hang out with us during a show if you get a chance. But if you haven't seen this clip from Marquee, I believe, their Twitter page in Japan, which it's 14 hours ahead?
Yeah, something like that.
Seiya Suzuki over in Japan stood at the batter's box, and instead of a bat, he brought a samurai sword. Just play it for a second, Joe. I don't even know what to say at first. Just play us the clip. Sound full. He's stepping to the plate.
Can they hear us, Joey?
They can't. Oh, commentary welcome.
All right.
Did you hear that?
He's
slicing the ball in half with a sword.
I think it's very impressive, not only for the knife being that sharp, but to swing it the way he's swinging it and making contact. I feel like it's impressive.
I mean, I know it's batting practice, but you have to realize how thin. That means he's hitting the ball with just a little blade, not a bat. He's hitting it with the blade. I'm shocked that the ball is just slicing in half like a tomato.
Yeah, that's
you know how hard a baseball is?
It's pretty hard. That's why it hurts.
No
when
wonder
you get
everybody
hit by
was afraid of the samurai sword. Sing.
I just love that Seya is showing up to spring training with a sword.
I hope he doesn't leave it at the ballpark.
Didn't have that on the bingo card of what's getting packed for the big trip.
I hope he's not trying to fly back to Arizona with it. That's what I also hope.
Just like, why do you have a samurai sword, Seya?
I just want to do like a kebab now at his house or some sort of fajita night, right? Because
I
could just be throwing stuff at him. And
he's Japanese. I'm not surprised he has one, but why are we bringing one to Arizona at spring training?
I know you guys.
Unless they asked him to.
You guys aren't old enough, but they just did have the 50 years of SNL. That reminds me of the old John Belushi samurai skit where he had the samurai sword. I never thought, if you would have said, what kind of money? I'd have put $100 down to say it's not going to split the ball in half. Mm-hmm. He's not even swinging hard. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a fake ball. Are we being punked by Seya and the Cubs? I don't think so, because the one ball splits in half and almost hits the cameraman. I'm assuming it's my guy Scotty Shags, but and Seya runs over like, "Are you okay?" Yeah. I'd be more worried about the guy with the samurai sword coming at me to see if I'm okay than I would be about a piece of baseball.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hey, you can stay there. I'm just fine. Put the sword away. Thanks. All right, so let's get into Shota. We've been going through players and talking about projections because the Cubs say they need to exceed projections all over the field to have a great season. That's how you have a great season. All right, fine.
All right.
Shota starting season 1. I think we all can agree, including the live YouTube chat, that he exceeded all expectations and projections in 2024, year number 1 in the major leagues, right?
Absolutely. He exceeded them and more. And that's what makes
he blew them away.
This isn't his fault. This is why I'm going to find myself doing more Jed Hoyer complaining here, and I'm not trying to be, but him having the season he had last year goes into why Jed Hoyer got an F, because you got a guy who overperformed what you expected and you still missed the playoffs. So, he well exceeded projections last season, and he's become a fan favorite, and I'm excited to watch him pitch this year.
Before they had signed Tucker, a lot of people would say he is the superstar on the team. You know who said that? Sierra Santos. I asked, where are the superstars? She said it's Shota. So last year, 15-3, ERA at 2.91, and an F4 of 3. This year, the Zips projection, 9-7 record, for whatever that's worth. People don't like to talk about record. I know. But
you do.
I do, because this team's supposed to be better. He was 15-3 with a blah team, and this team's supposed to be in first place, and they say he's only going to win 9 games.
He did go 15-3.
ERA goes up to almost 3.5, and the F4 down to 2.6. Is this fair?
Well, let's set the table. as we've said during this entire stretch of projection segments we have done, projections are always conservative.
Oh boy,
they're always conservative. So this is, can he surpass this? Yeah, absolutely he can.
Well, here's what we are worried about. If we are to buy what Jed Hoyer threw at us at the end of last season, the weather thing, we've said, well, if it hurt your old offense last year, then it helped your pitchers.
Yes.
Specifically, a guy who throws a lot of fly balls and home runs. So if the weather were to turn around this year, well, it could be harder for him. I'm asking you this then. I agree that this is possibly realistic. Do I think there's possible regression instead of taking the next step? Yeah.
I'm glad
something about this guy's vibe makes me say this is BS.
Yeah.
The numbers are BS, and Mr. Zips, the computer, is wrong again. Which is more likely this year? Seiya top 5 in National League Cy Young voting.
You mean Shota?
Shota, yes, excuse me. Seiya's not going to be in there. If that happens, we're really off.
Say that one more time, Luke.
What's more likely to happen this season? Shota is in the top 5 in the National League Cy Young voting, or Shota hits those projections right there and regresses from last season. Which is more likely to you?
I would say he's right around these projections. I don't think he'll be in the Cy Young race. Personally. But that doesn't mean I don't think he'll be good.
Yeah, that's right.
That doesn't mean I don't think he'll be good.
2.6 F4 is not horrible out of one of your starting pitchers.
No.
You'd like more if he's going to be your quote-unquote ace.
And they still project him to throw 152 innings, which in today's age is awesome. His strikeouts per 9 is still around the same as last season, right? The earned run average of 3.49 is higher than last year. Obviously, last year 2.91 earned run average.
I didn't check the home runs. They must think he's going to give up more homers.
Well, I can look real quick and see. Let's see. He gave up 27 bombs last year.
Okay.
This year, Zips is projecting 20.
Interesting.
So actually less.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and they're projecting 153 strikeouts. So, for the sake of conversation, when you look at the rest of the other projection methods, Zips is actually the lowest on him. Because if you just look at regular Fangraphs, they have him striking out 174. You look at Steamer, they have him striking out 182. And a bunch of these others have him in the 160s or the 170s in terms of strikeouts.
Okay.
Zips has him the lowest at 153. And maybe, I do see that they project him for 27 starts. A lot of these other ones project for 29. And that's 2 starts that you're missing. And so I think Zips is probably adding in some form of an injury because he is 31, even though he's healthy last year. Absolutely, right? I'm not going to repeat what I've been saying most of the offseason. And I've openly said that I do have concerns about Shota negative regression. So what you're saying, I'm glad that you said it because I'm not the only one saying it then. That doesn't mean I don't have hope or optimism. It's just more of a concern. It is a worry. And that is why me and you both wanted them to add another starting pitcher.
Let me give you one more reason why the projections could be low.
Okay.
And
wrong.
wrong.
I like this. I like this spin zone.
I've talked about it. They have potentially 6 Gold Glovers playing behind him.
Yeah.
Everybody in the outfield could win a Gold Glove. Shortstop could win a Gold Glove. Second base could win a Gold Glove. First base could win a Gold Glove. I know he doesn't throw a ton of ground balls, but there's great defense behind him. He doesn't have Seya in right field. He's got Kyle Tucker running around in right field. Yeah. So let's just see how it unfolds. I think PCA it's possible that it could go either way. He could be a top 5 Cy Young guy, or he could be a little bit of regression.
Yeah.
Neither would shock me.
The one thing about Zips projections that I agree with or think that he'll be right around there is probably the earned run average of a 3.49. He was a 2.91 last season. And we talked about the ballpark factors and stuff. He was awesome at Wrigley last year. But there were a few times where, the wind kind of saved him on a few fly balls.
Sure, but he thrives on that environment too.
Oh, absolutely.
He soaks it up wearing his Walter Payton jersey, showing up.
This is not a Shota Imanaga slander session. We're just looking at the pros and the cons, or the possible cons. But everything we've seen says that this guy is way better than what anyone expected he would be when he came to the major leagues. Can he replicate it in year 2? Well, if the Cubs are going to make the playoffs, they're going to need him to. Plain and simple.
Speaking of starting pitchers, we will talk about the latest report out there from Bob Nightingale surrounding Lance Lynn in a second. But first, a word from our sponsors. Spring break, maybe the rest of spring training out there. If you're going to Arizona, you have to experience the future.
The future.
Waymo's autonomous ride-hailing service consists entirely of all-electric Jaguar vehicles, providing a consistent zero-emission experience for their riders. 150,000 trips per week across San Francisco, L.A., and Phoenix. Now, Waymo was the first company to serve as a fully autonomous ride with no human behind the wheel. They did it in 2015. They have over 40 million miles of real-world driving experience. That's enough to drive to the moon and back 80 times. So if you're heading out to Arizona for spring training or spring break, download the Waymo One app and get ready to experience the future.
Joey,
Yes, sir.
What's your favorite Lucy flavor?
All of them.
Absolutely. That's what I was hoping you would say.
Can't pick a favorite. They're like my children.
Do they have pumpkin spice?
Do they have shamrock yet?
Oh, don't get me
if
started.
they don't, maybe
I
we
love
just
mint.
help them out. If they don't, maybe we just help them out. Anyway, Lucy Nicotine, my friends. They have so many different flavors to help you get you through your day. I talk about stress and anxiety and, just those little things.
Little boost.
Sometimes you need a little bit of a boost. It's Thursday, but the Wednesdays, Lucy Nicotine can help you get you through the middle of the week. Now we're at Thursday, and maybe you need that little extra boost because all you can think about is what you're going to be doing on St. Patrick's Day weekend, this coming Saturday, and you can't focus at work. So maybe some of this Lucy Nicotine can help you out. All right, level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. Go to lucy.co/CHGO and use promo code CHGO2025 to get 20% off your first order. Lucy has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. Again, that's lucy.co and use code CHGO2025 to get 20% off. So again, if you do not like it, you can send it back and get your money back. To me, that's the biggest thing on top of the discount. All right. Here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning: this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Barb in the live YouTube chat would owe $1 if she were me, because she's already mentioned Cameron Smythe's name as a future
Barb,
star.
you owe $1 to the swear jar. You owe $1 to the swear jar.
The Kyle Tucker Fund. Let's start the Kyle Tucker Fund.
Barb should have to pay $1 to the fund every time she mentions trading fairs.
Yeah, she should.
Okay. All right. So we talked about Shota, and in that segment at the top of this show, Cody, you mentioned starting pitching depth. We know they didn't have enough last year. Mm-hmm. At the end of the season, it was like starting pitcher by committee. I thought Joey was going to start a game at the end of 2024. Now, the Cubs definitely have more pitching depth. I will give them credit for that. They didn't go out and get the elite starter that we wanted, but they added guys, and they started adding guys that would have innings. I saw Jamison Tyone saying in camp something like, I've never seen this type of depth. Non-roster invitees are good, right? And it looks like Brad Keller's going to make the team. Bob Nightingale tweeted out this morning that the Cubs have entered negotiations with Lance Lynn on a 1-year major league deal. Lance Lynn, White Sox 2 years ago, Cardinals last year. A, are you interested in Lance Lynn? And B, where does he fit into this mix? Are they trying to, is somebody else hurt that we don't know about? Or is this strictly Assad's going to have to go on the IL and he's not ready, yada, yada, yada? Like, is this just insurance for Javier Assad?
That's what I think. So let me just say this. Lance Lynn does not inspire confidence in me. Will he perhaps find a way to eat you some innings if you do use him as a starter? Probably. But I don't know where he ranked last year, but I do know 2 years ago he led baseball in homers.
But he did throw 117 innings for the Cardinals last year with an ERA under 4.
Sure.
He wasn't horrible by those numbers. He would at least offer you depth. But I don't understand why, if it's a starting rotation spot, which you would assume it is, even though he said he'd be interested in potentially being a closer or whatever, yada, 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 why wouldn't it go to Ben Brown or Jordan Wicks? Because you're not sending, if you sign Lance Lynn, you're not sending him and stashing him in Iowa.
Right. He won't.
First of all, he's got to ramp up for a month at least.
Even if he wanted to, he doesn't want to do that.
No, he won't do it. Yeah. He's not going to. If you were to have told him that's part of the deal, there's no way he'd be signing.
Right. There's no way he would have hung up the phone. You know,
he's going to be 38 in May.
Obviously, his best seasons are behind him. But I would say he probably peaked with the White Sox in 2021. And I guess he was he was nearly a 7-WAR pitcher in 2019. But again, that's at age 32. He's 30.
He's going to be 38 in May.
Yeah. So it's been 6 years since his best season. I guess, when you look at last season, all things considered, to be able to pitch 180 innings is great, but he also had a 5.73 earned run average. Oh, no, I'm looking at the wrong season. That's 2023. He pitched 117 innings last year, like you said. My bad. 3.84 earned run average, 1.3 Fangraphs WAR. It just gives me very meh vibes.
Yeah.
I don't really have an opinion. Could Tommy Hotovy and Tyler Zombro maybe unlock something, or at least, help him continue his back end of his career success? I guess.
You said back end, and I started thinking about what Steve Stone said. I won't go there.
I just don't really have an opinion. I personally, until I know exactly why, I don't have an opinion. I don't think it's a bad idea because he's not going to cost you anything. But I also am like, you're going to purposely block one of your young pitchers. If this is a depth signing, again, like he's not going to not be on the major league roster. Now, if you sign him, say they sign him later today or they sign him tomorrow, then yeah, this guy's got to go to start the season in Iowa and get a couple starts in or whatever to get ramped up.
Yeah.
Right. And
especially at 37, 38.
You have the depth and you have the experience in your rotation and with other guys that will allow you to take your time on that. And if that's the route you go with it, then fine. I'm just curious on what I'm curious about is how they view Ben Brown. He's trying to implicate a new pitch, a changeup, right? Jordan Wicks, 25 pounds lighter, has looked pretty strong in the spring. I saw a good friend, Eastern Illinois alum, Aldo Soto, tweet the other day in his last start that he was touching 96 in that start. And so, like, I understand that you don't know what you're going to get exactly out of Jordan Wicks, and you don't know what you're going to get exactly out of Ben Brown. Same thing with Cade Horton. All these young dudes. So I get why you would go get a veteran who's been there, done that, has had success, despite how old he is. But I guess I'm curious on how they view some of these other dudes, because in a way it feels like he would block one of them. And to me, the answer I need is like, okay, is Ben Brown and Jordan Wicks minor league depth if there's an injury? Or
Ben Brown has to be on the opening day roster. At the very least as a reliever.
But the thing is,
at the very least, he has to be a reliever.
I don't disagree. But the way they've been using him in the spring has been as a starter.
I know, which that's why I find this slightly odd. Are we going to find out that another starting pitcher is banged up in addition to Assad?
Did Tyon get off the plane to Japan without back problems?
Listen, I know we talked about Steele and the flu. Was there more to that we don't? I just... Listen, I have no problem with him as starting depth. I just don't know how you're going to fit him into the roster and the plans as the season moves forward. Now, you might not have to do anything with him because you could just leave him in Arizona for a while and let him work on it, right? But so another guy is Brad
timing.
Keller.
It's the timing.
It's very odd
That's
timing.
the rub of it, right? Where like the pitch would be, right?
Yes.
A veteran can come in April and May, eat some bullets, eat up some innings, and let Jordan Wicks and Ben Brown get on a normal plan where you could either be a long relief guy, a starter, or move him to the bullpen later in the year. But the fact that he has to go to, but that's why he has to go to, the fact that now Lance Lynn would have to go to Iowa and then ramp up, that's what sort of makes this strange.
Yeah, and we've seen Brad Keller out there look spectacular. Now, Patrick Mooney has a really interesting article at The Athletic about Keller and how the Cubs found him and realized there might be more there. The Red Sox couldn't hold on to him, and they're like, that's our guy. We can do it. We can help him.
Yep.
And he was like, I'm on board with that. And he comes to the Cubs, and while it's just been the Cactus League, he's been great.
Well, yeah.
Great. So the question is, based on this Lance Lynn stuff, you could, I mean, before I would say you could have had Keller, Horton, you could have Wicks, right? All those guys, and Ben Brown, all of those guys I would have thought you would want to give a shot at that spot before you would want to go to 37, 38-year-old Lance Lynn. But is Keller a guy now where Patrick Mooney says maybe he's super high leverage 3-out guy? He might actually fit in the bullpen. Okay, all right. I'm cool with that too. I just like what I've seen out of the guy. But it still doesn't really answer the question about the starting rotation for me. It really doesn't.
I do think Keller has more opportunity because he's a non-roster invitee,
Yeah.
so like he has to make the opening day roster, right?
And there's no way he's not. He's pitched too well. They're
Right.
going to find a spot.
And he hasn't started any games. He's only came in as a reliever in the spring.
Yeah.
So he will likely be in the bullpen. And sure, when you take a guy and suddenly, instead of averaging 93 miles per hour on the fastball, and you're suddenly touching 97, 98, okay, you got something there, right? I think that conversation doesn't necessarily go with the Lance Lynn conversation. The Lance Lynn conversation has everything to do with Jordan Wicks, Ben Brown, Cade Horton,
Those
and
three
Javier,
specifically,
and
yeah.
Javier Assad. And we know Javier, they've already, Scotty Shags tweeted the other day that that the Cubs are going to put Javier Assad on the injured list to start the year with the oblique thing. We don't know how serious it is,
Right.
but it's an oblique, and you just never know, right? So with him out, that does, I guess in a way, open up a spot. But my thinking when that happened was like, okay, that opens up a spot for Brad Keller. Who else is not going to be on that 26-man on stateside opening day to make a spot for Lance Lynn? Now, to push back on myself, he's not going to be on the opening day roster if they sign him tomorrow. He's not going to be ready to be part of the rotation by then because he hasn't had a spring training. So at some point they will have to do that, and maybe it works out because, as you know, people always say, baseball just seems to always figure itself out, and there's always an injury or whatever. So I think it's a little bit of those things. But the pro of it is that Lance Lynn has been there. He's done that. He's had success. The negative of it, it's not even really a negative, is I just don't understand why we're doing this. And
potentially doing is what we should say, right? Because they're just in negotiations.
Right. I don't get it unless other news comes out. We both wanted a pitcher. Of course, this is the way they go. Thanks, Tom.
I'd have been more interested if they went after Quintana when he was available, to be honest with you.
Cap would have loved that.
Right. Pat Jumer says in the live YouTube chat, I think it shows the lack of confidence in Horton, Brown, and Wicks as starters. I hope not.
Yeah.
Here's another scenario, but again, I don't know how it fits apples to apples. If you're telling me Lance Lynn is your choice to start a game instead of a rare opportunity for Caleb Killian this season, I'm on board with that. But again, you're not stashing Lance Lynn in Iowa, most likely. You can stash Caleb Killian there, right? So I don't know. And people are saying Keegan Thompson potentially getting DFA'd. This isn't an apples to apples for Keegan Thompson either, because Keegan Thompson wasn't going to make the major league roster either. So
at least we don't think he will. Well, he's based off of, and Tyson Miller has struggled too. Like I guess there is a way to fit him on there. He's only going to take a deal if he's going to start, and right, like I don't see
right. So then I don't know what we're talking about, but let's see what happens and let's see what unfolds. Maybe there's stuff we don't know about.
Right.
Maybe there's another answer.
I think that's the biggest thing is we just kind of
we'll talk about another guy in the starting rotation. Not sure where he fits in. You know, he's sort of in a different situation than obviously Shota and Justin Steele as well. So we'll talk about him in a second. But first, the Chicago winters can be brutal, but Toyota helps make it easier. Toyota has 25 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. That's more than any other auto brand. From the sleek Camry all-wheel drive to the Corolla hybrid all-wheel drive, the Toyota Tundra is a truck that's known for its power, durability, and off-road capabilities. Perfect for our winters. Headed to the big game? Maybe you're headed out for spring break and you got to pack up the whole family. Well, they have all-wheel drive on that Tundra, and you can keep you and yours safe on the road. They have more than any other auto brand. Did I mention that? Did I mention it? Not enough times I haven't. So you bring the action. Toyota brings the traction. Toyota, let's go places. Real quick, got to remind you again about the Die Hard deal. It's just running this week. It's our free agent frenzy Die Hard deal. Normally $79.99 right now, $36 for the first year. Plus you get the free t-shirt and all the discounts and all the perks that come along with being a Die Hard. We're in a competition with our other All-City networks.
Fierce competition.
It's not a competition. We're stepping on their necks right now. We're stepping on their necks because we are not the second city. We are second to none. And right now, Philly, no brotherly love. They're not doing much. They're not doing much. Denver, they're worried about catching that last ski ride before the season's over. Waiting for Broncos season, apparently. So we're dominating. We're dominating. We hope you will continue. This is a great time to start right at the beginning of the season so you don't miss anything. Cody, tell us about Game Time.
Sorry, I was reading the chat. Game Time. Listen, we got opening day, stateside, right around the corner. And Game Time is going to have you covered, my friends. All right, they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you the only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value stuck. All right, listen, you want to go to Wrigley this summer? You want to help Tom break even? Yeah. I know I will be. I know Joey will be, and Luke will. He will definitely be doing that too, because I'm going to drag him there. And we're all going to use Game Time when we go to Wrigley. And when we get off at the red line, or if Stucky drives his SUV into the city and he parks wherever he parks, he will then open up Game Time whenever he gets out of his car when he finally finds a parking spot. And we will open it up right when we see the red marquee at beautiful historic Wrigley Field, because we wait until right before first pitch. That's the beauty of Game Time, my friends. You wait as long as you can, then you buy your tickets right before, and you will get the best value, I promise you. All right? Another reason why Stuck loves it, and I think all three of us, because no one likes a bait and switch.
Nope. Hate a bait and switch.
Is that the all-in pricing feature will show the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. All right? You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy as well with seat views. And they also have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage. Your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Our guy Niren in the live YouTube chat, as we were talking about the possibility of Lance Lynn.
A very, very much needed comment. I appreciate it.
Possibly signing Lance Lynn. Cubs apparently in negotiations with Lance Lynn right now on a one-year major league deal, according to Bob Nightingale of USA Today. Niren says they're thinking about 8 to 10 starts to buy time. They want those young guys to have innings for July and October. Yeah. That's a valid point, but those guys aren't going to not throw at Iowa. So they're still going to have some innings, right? Okay.
This might be a Craig Counsell thing. It might.
I'm looking for the clarity on it. Again, I don't hate the idea of a veteran guy that can eat some innings for you and is probably better than, or at least as good as Kyle Hendricks was for you last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like another depth arm there. But I don't know. You also have we also have Matthew Boyd in the rotation, right? Mm-hmm. And wherever he slots in, here's a guy coming off injury that did pitch last year and was 2-2 when he did pitch with an ERA of 2.72. Really good. So the Cubs liked it. They saw it and they said, we can jump on this. This is a value signing, and he could, if we can get him in the lab, we can get him in our pitch lab. This guy could be way more than like a 4 or 5 starter. He could be really special for us. He could go towards the top part of our rotation. Not 1 or 2, but he can push those guys. Now, the Zips projections are way less optimistic than
any of the other ones.
Anybody else.
Yeah.
Zips, when we looked at the projections, and we're talking about exceeding projections because that's what Jed Hoyer says the Cubs have to do to have a special season, I'd rather have Matthew Boyd make a start than Lance Lynn, for instance. No question about that. But they've only got him going from 39.2 innings last year, coming off of his injury, to 59.7 innings this year. And basically the same F-WAR.
So he's
what actually... What are they trying to say? Are they trying to say he's going to be a bullpen guy?
In many ways, they're actually saying he'll be better than he was last year.
Well, the ERA will be higher.
They're clearly, based off the games started.
And the K9 will be lower.
The games started and the games played in is 13. So they're factoring in the possibility of an injury. And that was my big concern with him when they signed him, is that he just hasn't consistently been healthy over time. But, I mean, this is like a real drastic, like, what do they know? Has Zips, has the computer been in the Cubs front office? Because if you look at Steamer or just Fangraphs, they have him pitching over 100 innings.
Right.
And so when we were talking about this before he came in, I hadn't even looked at the projections for him yet, but they have him making 13 starts, 59 innings, and Zips does. And that means that they're thinking that he is going to get hurt. They're factoring in that in.
I guess that has to be it, right?
That has to.
And I'm not saying that part of it is crazy, but we've also been here on this podcast and clearly said, listen, if you're buying stock in somebody that you think could greatly exceed projections, there's at least a possibility of that. This is a guy. Mm-hmm. This is a guy right here, because the projections are so low. All he has to do, I think, is be healthy, and he'll exceed those projections.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
If he's mildly healthy. I'm not even saying like everybody has a stint on the IL during the season.
He's the number 4 starter right now? Is that what we're saying?
That's what I thought when they signed him, they were replacing Kyle Hendricks.
So these projections...
I don't think he's your 5. I think he's your 4.
These projections just has me wondering, what does Zips know that we don't? Because this is...
Ron says he's not a spring chicken. Yeah, well, I understand that's true, and I know he has an injury history.
He's going into age 34.
But I'm just saying, all I'm pointing out is that's the projection, whether it's right or wrong.
Now,
but could he be a guy that exceeds projections more than almost anybody on the team? Yeah, because if he's healthy, I think he'll blow away those numbers.
Now, I will say this to defend the computer, I guess. And I hate that I'm doing this. But if you just look at the last 4 seasons, it's not even just last year, right? Mm-hmm. 2024, 39 innings. 2023, 71 innings. 2022, 13 innings. 2021, 78 innings. 2020, 60 innings. He hasn't pitched over 100 innings since 2019. So, yeah, it goes back to what I said when they signed him. The biggest concern with this guy is health.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Ron's betting $100 he does not go over 100 innings pitched. Now, remember, Lance Lynn threw 117 for the Cardinals last year. I don't know if these two... Again, I don't know if this is something that's connected or not. Like knowing that they have this guy with this history, and so they say they have to have this depth. I'm just not sure how you fit Lance Lynn into this early on, other than he takes a sod spot.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about Lance Lynn and then talk about Matthew Boyd, like, I don't know what the routine they will want him in. Maybe they go to a 6-man rotation.
Or are they tandem? You know, a lot of times Javier Assad, he'd have a tandem pitcher after his 4 innings, and maybe Lance Lynn.
Are you going to carry an extra pitcher early in the season instead of a position player?
Though,
instead of a position player?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. But listen, outside of just the 59 innings and only 13 games, 3.62 earned run average with a 9.35 strikeouts per 9. That's pretty solid. That would be good. Now, when you look at his last 39 innings with the Guardians when he came back last year, and you can even factor in the postseason numbers, which he was awesome in the postseason for the Guardians.
And the 6 shutout innings he tossed against the Cubs when they called him up last year, too. That was just
when he came back
heart-melting.
Yeah.
Right. And Ron's pointing out, we forgot Colin Ray.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think
who's also in that, obviously in that same mix at the back end of the rotation.
Colin Ray brings more certainty than Matthew Boyd and Lance Lynn at this point, in my opinion. And Ron's saying that there's no certainty at all. I disagree with that. But if you
we appreciate the comment.
Yeah, no, I'm not telling him that he's wrong about everything.
He's not mocking you, Ron. He's just saying you're wrong.
I just don't agree with. Like, I think we know what Colin Ray will be, and I feel like he will probably be underappreciated all season long. Anyway, with the Guardians, 10.44 strikeouts per 9, 2.72 earned run average with a 3.10 expected ERA, a 3.29 FIP, in just those 39 innings. When he's out there, he's good. This is coming off an injury last year. Coming back from injury, like, they just need to find a way to keep him healthy. If they get him to 100 to 120 innings, it's a massive win. And if there's any silver lining, it's that all the other projection systems believe that he will go over 100 innings this year. So, Zips, you're dead to me on Matthew Boyd. There's your spin zone.
I think that's a place where it might not be, I might not throw down a lot of money that's a place where they would exceed projections. I'm just saying the projections are low. So if he's healthy, that's a guy that could greatly exceed projections. Other players have to do it just based on making the jump from here to here, right? I think his is almost strictly health related. So we'll find out.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to do some digging around the division, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
We're going to preview each of the teams in the Cubs division as we get ready for the season here. By the way, opening day, 5 days away.
Oof.
Savor the last 5 days.
The Brewers won 93 games. We're going to start with the Brewers because they have been the best team in the division for several years now. In 2021, they won 95 games, finished in first. 2022, second place with 86 wins. 2023, 92. 2024, 93. So they've averaged 91.5 wins the last 4 seasons. By the way, I want to point out that Pacoda thinks the Cubs are going to win 91.6 this season. Basically the same record that the Brewers have averaged over the last 4 years.
And the Brewers are projected for how many, Luke?
Pacoda, 79.4. Zips, 81.
Thank you. We needed the context.
That is
Zips is back.
That's a big drop.
Yeah.
That's a big drop. Remember, the Brewers beat the Cubs out. The Brewers beat the Cubs and Cardinals out by 10 games last year. The computer thinks they're going to finally take the fall that we've been waiting for.
Well, if you remember projections, second coffee, okay?
Oh, nasty. No, I'm not. I got a cold again.
Yeah.
It's miserable.
I'm just glad it's moved to you.
Yes, I knew you had it. I might have gotten it from you.
Well, it was 2 weeks ago. Anyway.
Oh, that's right.
The thing about projections,
period.
the division projections last year, I think going into last year, these projections had the Brewers finishing third or fourth. behind
Right.
the Cubs, Cardinals, and Reds. So this one's a little bit different in the fact that even though they have the Cubs winning, they definitely have more belief in the Brewers this year than they even did going into last year. I'll just say this. We all sit here. The chat is going to say that, has said this 1,000 times all offseason. The Brewers, they just figure it out. It's like they stole the devil magic from the Cardinals from when I was a kid.
That's what scares me.
And they just figured out. You lose Willy Adames. I think they'll miss the bat. His defense, all right. You still have Jackson Chourio, but how will Jackson Chourio be in year 2? I feel like he's probably going to be pretty good, even though the projection systems don't exactly love him. I still feel like he's going to be awesome because he's shown to be a 5-tool type guy. You'll get Christian Yelich back, who's older, but the bat still was his bat was awesome last year before the injury, right? And then I think the biggest question for them when it comes to offense, and if they exceed projections, is if Garrett Mitchell stays healthy. They need Garrett Mitchell to be healthy in 2025 if they're going to be better than the Cubs. And he just is never healthy. So they're going to have Terang at short probably, and that guy they got back for Devin Williams probably in that infield to go with Ortiz at third.
Contreras at catcher.
And Contreras at catcher. That's fine. I'd still take the Cubs over their infield. I would. Terang is another.
I would take the Cubs over their infield, yes.
I would also take the Cubs outfield over the Brewers. On paper, I would take Cubs everything over the Brewers anything.
I would too, but their outfield does have great potential. I think the Cubs are more certain, a much higher floor.
Yes,
unquestionably.
But the Brewers have potential with Chourio.
Have great potential with those young players.
If Chourio is a 5-WAR player and Garrett Mitchell is just healthy and hits like he does when he is healthy, to go with Yelich as either your DH or just your left fielder, that's really good. They also have Sal Frelick, who's a really good defensive player. He's not exactly the best offensive player, but he's a really good defensive player. So I think that if the Brewers will exceed projections, if you talk about their offense, they're going to need Garrett Mitchell to be healthy, and they're going to need Chourio to be even better in year 2. How many sophomore slumps have we seen? How many times have you mentioned that Michael Busch still has to prove it? Which I agree.
That's
right?
true.
So
fair.
I think that when you talk about the Brewers, yes, they could easily find themselves being an 89 to 91 win team. But to me, what puts the Cubs over them right now, as we sit here on March 13th, is there is more certainty on the Cubs roster. You know what you're going to get out of Nico Horner. You know what you're going to get out of Dansby Swanson. You know what you're going to get out of Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki, and Kyle Tucker. That's nearly nearly over half the lineup. Now, their wild cards are PCA, Matt Shaw. Can Miguel Amaya be what he was in the second half of last year? Is Carson Kelly a really solid defensive backup that can also still have that 99 WRC plus he had last year?
So.
If so, then I think the Cubs will be better than the Brewers. But to bring it back around on the Brewers, what will probably keep them afloat is probably their bullpen. That is probably what will keep them afloat. Because if they can get a lead early, that bullpen, even without Devin Williams, is still really good.
How good's Nestor Cortez going to be this year? You worry?
Right.
Isn't that the kind of guy that you're just like, here we go. This will be the guy that'll rip our hearts out for no reason whatsoever. Just a guy.
The frustrating Cubs offense of years past, Nestor Cortez will twirl some sort of gem.
Who will give us more pain? Nestor Cortez or Jose Quintana?
Right. Yes.
There is at least one Jose Quintana revenge game this season, right?
Well, and what does Woodruff have left in the tank coming off injury? Can he
Tommy John?
Can he get back? Will he be that type of player?
I think that he can get back, but I don't know if he'll be what they need him to be. You know how many times guys come back from Tommy John and they're not, they need time to get back, and it's always the year after where they're in the form they need to be. They still have not Willie Peralta,
Freddie Peralta, and they brought in Savale too as well. I mean, the rotation's going to be fine. I think the Cubs offense is better than their rotation, but we've played this game before.
I think the ability, their ability in the bullpen, and the fact that they will have a good defense is what will keep them in this division race. And will they get enough offense from some guys that you don't really know anything about? But I think at the end of the day, if they're really going to be in it, Chourio will be even better in year 2.
So let's play both sides of it. If you're a Brewers fan, best case scenario for this season. I mean, I don't want to say it, but if we're trying to do both sides of this, best case scenario was they still own the division. I didn't think they did last year. Somehow they will do the voodoo up in Wisconsin, and you still won't be able to beat them, even though they're not good. Somehow they'll exceed projections. They'll top their 81 or 79 wins that are projected by the computer, and I don't think they can win 90 games, but let's say they win 89 games. Mm-hmm. Remember, Zips has them at 81 wins. It has the Cubs at 84. That's only 3. Mm-hmm. That's only 3 different. And remember, the Cubs were 10 back of them last year. Mm-hmm. Had the Cubs made enough of a leap and the Brewers taken enough step back? That's not crazy. Best case scenario, they're still the best team in the division. Worst case scenario, the Reds could pass them. For sure.
Yeah.
I don't know about the Cardinals. No. And I don't know about the Pirates, but the Pirates will have some stud pitching going on early in the season. If their young guys can hit.
Then they'll lose 10 games in August.
Worst case scenario, I think they're the 3rd best team in the division.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Well, best case also, they need the division to come back to them, right? As you mentioned, the division needs to be an 86-win division, and then the Brewers are in it. Worst
case scenario for the Brewers, they're the 4th best team in the division, and the franchise has to be sold to Greg Braggs after a lawsuit following the escalator thing. That's probably their worst case scenario, that Braggs is their owner by the end of the season.
He changes the name to Milwaukee Braggs?
Yeah, the Milwaukee Braggs. And he turns them into a minor league team. Where they just do little stunts running around the bases.
Come on down to Brick Park.
Yeah, come on, Braggs Field.
Yeah. Let's go through the rotation and compare it to the Cubs.
Okay.
All right, Freddie Peralta, Nestor Cortez, Tobias Myers, Aaron Savali, Jose Quintana. I guess Aaron Ashby can be thrown in there. And then, Brandon Woodruff coming off Tommy John.
Sure.
Then you can
Peralta's real.
Right. Peralta, in my opinion, is a true number 1. If not number 1, a true number 2. But he was definitely their number 1 last year, and they won 90-some games.
Do you think Peralta's better than Steele and or Shota?
Vegas believes that. So right now the odds for the Cy Young, I looked up this morning, I believe Freddie Peralta is 22-1, Shota is 30-1, and Justin Steele is 40-1. So they like Peralta better than the other 2.
I don't disagree with it. I think if he were somehow added to the Cubs roster, he might become the ace. Yeah. He'd probably be the ace, and you'd push each guy down a little bit.
I look at the rest of it, though. It's like, okay, Cortez, And Jose Quintana was great with the Mets last year, right? And he'll probably be able to eat innings for the Brewers, and who knows if he'll be as good as he was with the Mets. I'm sure the Mets right now, with all the injuries they're getting, would love to have Jose Quintana back. I'm surprised they didn't bring him back.
Why aren't they interested in Lance Lynn or the Yankees?
There you go. Tobias Myers is kind of a wild card. He pitched well against the Cubs, I think, multiple times last year. He's a young arm for them. But DL Hall going on the 60-day injured list is a huge loss for them. He was part of the Corbin Burns trade, I believe. Mm-hmm. Robert Gasser also on the injured list for them, 60-day right now. I don't know when it's retroactive to, but either way, they're going to start the year on the injured list. I think the Cubs have a really solid top 2, and I think Milwaukee has a solid 1. But then after that, it's like, I don't really know. Savali, I guess, pitched pretty well for them last year in a really no one expected situation. I guess you can expect something out of Cortez. I don't find myself really afraid of a lot of these guys, and I don't know what Woodruff will be in the first year back after injury. And he's
but
not
if he's old Brandon Woodruff,
right? But he's not even going to be on the team on opening day. Now, could he be on the team late April, early May? Sure, but I think what I'm getting at here is, even though the Cubs don't have a guy like a Freddie Peralta, at least at this point, based off proven Major League experience, I do feel like the Cubs have a better rotation overall, even though there's uncertainty with Matthew Boyd and whoever is going to be in the 5 spot, right? Tyone will find a way to give you innings. we just said yesterday he's one of, what did Sean say? Like one of 30 guys the last 2 years to pitch over 300 innings with an ERA over or under 4 or something. I don't know. Whatever it was.
Don't let the numbers get in the way of a good story.
That's why I said the Brewers bullpen will be very key for them in their success. And it's painful because Trevor McGill was once a Cubs prospect. So was Brian Hudson, and they both pitched high leverage innings for the Brewers last year. And I believe McGill is going to be the closer this year for them.
You know how we went into the last 2 seasons saying what if, hoping if this happens, and almost none of it happened, and they ended up with 83 wins. That's how the Brewers feel to me. They do have a lot of they have more big what ifs than the Cubs do going into this season. It doesn't mean baseball won't baseball, and we won't be sitting here pounding our heads onto the table waiting for football season.
Yeah.
But on paper, it's more likely that the Brewers are going to be the Cubs of last season than they are the Brewers of last season, right? That they're going to regress to that 81, 82, 83 type area because they have good players. They have some great players, but they also have more question marks than the Chicago Cubs do going into 2025.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing that gives me any kind of confidence about the Cubs just in the division. I just feel like there's more certainty on this Cubs roster. And if there are some injuries, I feel like they have good enough depth to keep them afloat. Are they going to need core players to be good? I'm not even yet. Let me backtrack. Are they going to need core players to be good? Yes. Does it necessarily mean that core players have to exceed projections? I do not necessarily think so. Not to just win the division. Now, if you want to get real,
to have a special season.
You want to have a special season. You want to get real Delulu.
Matthew Boyd wins 20 games and has an ERA of 1.
Like 220 innings.
You know, I'm just saying to win this division, I don't necessarily think your core players have to exceed projections. You're going to need PCA and Matt Shaw. You're going to need Matt Shaw to be in the Rookie of the Year race. You're going to need PCA to be a 4-win player to win this division if your core players just live up to their projections.
Yeah, that's the factor, right? Is we have a lot of knowns on the Chicago Cubs, and we have a lot of things that can easily cancel out some of these Brewers what-ifs, right? Like PCA could just be straight up a better player than Garrett Mitchell this year.
Okay.
Immediately cancels that out. There's that scenario too.
Hypothetical for you guys. You can pick 3 outfielders from either team to make your outfield. Don't worry about, hey, they have to have a right fielder, they have to have a center fielder, they have to have a left fielder, because guys move around anyways right now. You can have any of the 3 outfielders from the 2 teams, because we mentioned that it's a pretty good race. Who are the 3 players you would want to have? Kyle Tucker is absolutely one of them. I would say Yelich is also one of them. So who's the third?
Are you talking about the 3 players between these 2 teams who you would like to have?
Anybody that's listed as an outfielder for either team. So if you want to put Seya in this mix, you can put Seya in the mix. If you want to put Happ in the mix and PCA and Tucker, those would be the 4 I would say for the Cubs. So if you want to say Mitchell, if you want to say Churio, if you want to say Yelich,
I mean,
Frelick.
Manuel Margot still on the board right now in this draft.
I would take Tucker, Churio, and Happ.
Really? That's a good... But that's what I'm saying. Like, some of these guys are close enough, right? If I was choosing first, I would take Tucker.
Yeah. Kyle Tucker is far and away the best player, not
if
only
I were
in this
choosing
scenario,
second,
but in the division.
I might go Churio over Yelich.
Yeah. Young,
Now,
5-tool guy.
does Yelich have a higher upside for a good season, even though his bad back is also a problem, than Happ or Seya or PCA? I don't know. That's a
The only reason I didn't
it's a
say
tough call.
The only reason I didn't say PCA over Happ is because I took Churio as a young guy who has already proved
You don't
to
want
be
too
a
many
really
unproven
good,
guys.
Yeah. I want 2 guys who have proven it and a wild card. And I think of all the young outfielders between these 2 teams, Churio is the one that I think there's more certainty with right now. But I hope to be able to sit here in a year and say that PCA is better than him.
See, Evil Wax is going with close to what you're saying. Tucker, Churio, PCA.
Yeah. I get why anyone would say PCA over Happ.
I'm taking
thinking about what I've seen
Seiya
before.
out of the mix because I'm just counting Seiya as a DH. But I don't know what we're going to – right, Yelich doesn't play outfield. So Yelich could potentially be out of the mix with his back too. Yeah. So Hap's an interesting one to put in there because, again, floor very high. Ceiling limited, but pretty good. Pretty good for all what everybody gets mad about him. I might roll the dice with somebody like Yelich over Hap just because the ceiling is higher, but definitely Tucker Churio, and then I don't know who the third is.
And you could throw Seiya in there and just forget about his defense. I think Seiya is at least the
hitter. If you're just talking hitter,
if we're talking offense, yeah, like Seiya is probably top 3 of all those outfielders. He's probably top 3 in there is just as a hitter.
I don't want to underestimate Yelich healthy, though. I don't. Because every time I do it, I regret it.
It is a massive concern.
Well, his back last year, at the end of last season, I heard people in Milwaukee saying, is he never going to play again?
Yeah. We'll see.
I heard people openly asking that question. Obviously, he's ready to play.
I base mine off what I've seen, age, stuff like that. I would put PCA in there in a year if he has the type of season my Delulu is giving me.
Let's put it this way: if you're picking those 3 players again at the end of the season, and Tucker has a healthy season and is 1, and Churio has the season that most people expect him to have, he's 2. If PCA is number 3, and everybody agrees on that at the end of the season, Cubs are going places.
If PCA is going to take knee-high curveballs deep to left center, we are going to be changing this conversation by August, September.
If he's hitting deep fly balls to straight center field off guys like Logan Gilbert, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't a roller. Yeah, that wasn't a roller. Yeah. That was impressive.
I like what Pat says. I'll take consistency of Hap over injury concerns of Yelich.
I don't totally disagree with that. Yeah. All right. Anyways, we'll continue this on Monday. We also have a special guest. I don't know if we're allowed to say special guest.
Tease.
When we say special, I mean special.
You're gonna want to be here
on Monday at 1:30.
Let's just say that he's been on the show before.
Been a friend of the show. Special, pretty special guest coming up on Monday.
And before we go, I would like to give a shout out to. Can you scroll up a little bit, Joey? Austin. Austin has been in the chat just going to war with Barb for the last hour. I'm giving you a lot of credit, even though you have Aaron Rodgers as your picture. I just want to give you a shout out, Austin, because God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers, and reading Barb's comments on a daily basis doing the show can be a battle. So credit to you.
Barb is mad at me today.
Yeah, Barb is mad. I'll
take
she
responsibility
can't
for the
acknowledge
Lance
the fact
Lynn
that we talked about Lance Lynn, and that's why he's on set.
Somebody was offering a key lime pie during the show, and I'll take it.
Get some turkey meatballs, Barb, and go enjoy the rest of your day.
Anyway. Corey and Brendan with a show at 1:30 tomorrow, and we will be back on Monday with our special guest. Until then, thanks for watching, and thanks for watching the CHGO Cubs podcast presented by Toyota. Fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.